you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
Wait, I'm just gonna see if I can put it in this. Can you still see it, or do you see something else?
Well, we can see your computer screen.
Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing, and I'm gonna share again to make sure that I'm sharing this one. Sorry for the. Now I think it should work.
Okay, we see a PowerPoint file now.
Okay, so just for context, can you see it in the right place, or?
Yeah, we see the main slide next to the.
This one.
Yeah. Now, okay.
Okay, so what I will present is what I did during my PhD, but there has been a lot of work done afterwards by Bertrand Rottier, and he published really a lot. So what I'm going to show you is more the characteristics which have not changed that much, but there are some things that have changed in the order of the phylogenetic sequence, because when I did this PhD, I focused more on the second mineralization stage, and the first I just kind of checked in the field what Einaudi did at the time. So Bertrand, he focused on the first mineralization stage and on the diatreme that you can see in this picture. On this side, I'm going to put the laser pointer. On the laser pointer. This is the diatreme here in the open pit, and he found some porphyry clasts in it. So part of his study, and it's his 2018 paper, I guess, one of these, is talking about those clasts and what are with what they are mineralized and what were the conditions. So it's a very interesting paper, and all his papers are in fact very interesting. So I start with what I did, and then at some point I start changing because what I did has been updated. So part of this is my work, and part is Bertrand. So here are some papers, the two of me, and then some of Bertrand, which, as you can see, is on sulfide replacement processes, mineralized breccia clasts, and some more magmatic things, but all very interesting. So in this talk, we're going to talk about Cerro de Pasco, which is located in central Peru, and is one of the largest polymetallic resources in the world, with post-1950 production plus known resources, which are more than 200 million tons at more or less 7% zinc, 2% lead, and also 3 ounces per ton silver. In addition, at least 100 million ton at 1.3 weight% copper, and 1 grams per ton gold. And prior to that, 1,200 million ounces of silver and 2 million ounces of gold have been mined, and also accompanied with silver and gold were 50 million tons at 2% copper. So having said that, as you will see, those elements, zinc, lead, silver, copper, gold, and copper, are distributed in different mineralization stages. And this talk is very focused on the evolution of the deposit, but if we put the lens of geometallurgy, which I'm doing now, you will see that there are some elements which I have put in bold in the presentation, which might cause some problems. And when someone looks at a deposit or does exploration, always have to look at minor elements which might penalize the concentrate quality or cause problem to the process. So I will mention that in the presentation, so it's a little bit linked to the real world on, okay, we have a deposit, but what are the problems? And there were problems when they mined this copper here, because the copper comes with arsenic. So at the time, they sent all the concentrate to La Oroya, which is like 50K or 100K from from Cerro de Pasco, and at the time there weren't much environmental regulations, so not too much of a problem, but now there are more problems, and that's worldwide, right? So we have to characterize not only the copper, the zinc, the lead, and all these beneficial elements, but also the elements that can penalize the operation. So the outline of this talk will be a geological setting, and I see if I can remember what I did during my PhD, the description of the mineralization stages, and I'm going to go into detail on the mineralogy that might be of interest for you, and then touch very briefly on the age and lifetime of the magmatic hydrothermal system using geochronology. There is a third part of the PhD which talks about the fluid source and evolution, which I haven't included because it would be too long, but you can either look at the papers of 2008 or Bertrand's papers. So just as a geological context, to put in context where we are going to, or what we are going to talk about, we are in a porphyry system, right? So we have at depth porphyry, which generally can have economic porphyry copper mineralization, and very closely related in space and also in time, we can have skarn deposits located within porphyries or within carbonate rocks. We can have these Rottier copper, zinc, lead, silver, gold deposits, which we're going to talk about today. So we're going to talk about these portions, which are in general very well developed in carbonate rocks, but also can be developed in volcanic rocks. And at the top of that, in a shallower part of the system, you're going to have gold and silver high sulfidation epithermal deposits, as they occur in many places, and it has been shown since a long time that they're linked with porphyry copper deposits. So this is a little bit the context that we are in now, and the elements, the suite of elements that we're going to have in the deposits that we're going to have. These deposits are generally zoned, and we're going to show the zonation. So this is kind of the conclusion that Bertrand came to with the work that was done before. I had a similar cartoon, but I think this is better. So just to show you a little bit how complex the system is, and as the conclusion, I put it first, so you can keep that in mind when I walk you through the presentation, that there are many mineralization stages. So there is a pre-polymetallic mineralization stage with some advanced argillic alteration in the diatreme. We're going to go back to the geology afterwards, but just so you have a snapshot of this. Porphyry mineralization prior to the diatreme, which is not shown here, but it's prior to the diatreme. And then we have mineralization stage A, B, and C. So A is pyrrhotite pipes, which are zoned, and it's very nice to see in the field. And then a pyrite quartz body, which then is followed later in time and a little bit on the edge of the deposit. So that's the space context, with the replacement zinc, lead, silver bodies in the carbonate rocks. Right. So this is a little bit the framework that we are going to describe. And maybe to go back a little bit of Cerro de Pasco. Cerro de Pasco is known for a very long time, and since the 1630, but probably before, because if you read some books on Spanish conquest and even before that, it has been known, because there are a lot of elements and minerals of interest there, not just gold and silver, but also copper, as I mentioned. Zinc, lead was of interest later. So there were already a lot of studies before me, obviously, which are those people, and now they did quite a lot of work, and I just continued what he did in the 70s, and Bertrand continued what I did. So when you do a PhD, it's never finished. There's always somebody else who will come afterwards and find some new things, so, which is good, because it's a finite time doing a PhD that we can do something, so we can't do everything, and even more in such a deposit, which is very big, right? So between the 70s and the 2000s, there wasn't a lot being done, but there was an opportunity at the time because the mineralization was much better exposed because the open pit was much bigger and grew during 30 years, and the analytical techniques improved. And this analytical technique improvement is also true between when I did the PhD and when Bertrand did his PhD. That are almost more than 10 years. And the laser ablation, when I was doing my PhD, was already there, but it was kind of coming. So in the early 2000s. So this is something that Bertrand took in and included in his PhD. So as I said, this presentation is based on what I did on the PhD, but also complemented with very important updates of Bertrand, which are very interesting. So if you're not familiar with Peru, Peru is in South America. Lima is at sea level, and Cerro de Pasco is located in central Peru in the high Andes, more or less 4,300 meters, so pretty high, pretty tough to work there. And there is a series of Devonian phyllites and shales, which are the basement, which are on this side of the deposit. Cerro de Pasco is here, and also some sandstone, Permian sandstone, and all the Triassic, up Triassic, Lower Jurassic is composed of limestones and dollar stones with the Pucara group, which is the blue here, and also in this part here. So these limestones are very important because they are very favorable for mineralization, which is not the case for some other limestones. Further south, there's another big deposit called Colquijirca, and there was also a PhD done by Rottier at the same time that I did my PhD here. And the mineralization there is in another formation, limestone formation, which is Pocobamba, but also in the Goyaskisga group, and so in some sandstones here. Right? So this is also very important. Same context, high sulfidation deposit in the center or close to the diatreme, and Cordillera and base metal ore bodies in the limestone. So very similar setting, and that's why we did the PhD at the same time, right? Because we knew what's going on here, so we wanted to understand if this was the same or was something different. There are some differences, but very, very closely related in time and in characteristics. If you want to read something that is very well characterized and book style, very nice donation, I recommend you to read, I think it's 2008 or something like this. It is an economic geology paper, which is very interesting. Okay, so this is the main context. And here you have two diatreme diatreme dome complexes, which were key for the mineralization at both Colquijirca and Cerro de Pasco. But it was key for the post diatreme mineralization, but kind of not that good maybe for the pre-diatreme mineralization, which is a porphyry style mineralization. So we have some class of porphyry here, we have some class of porphyry here, which are mineralized, but we don't know if the porphyry is economic because either it has been blown up or it's too deep to be reached by the current drilling. So something to keep in mind here. So we're going to do one cross section a bit in the district here, with in the western part, these phyllites and shales, which kind of play a role, which are pretty important because when the fluids come up, and we might touch that later if we have time, the fluids are not buffered by this type of rock because they are phyllites and shales, so they can travel up to the limestones where there will be fluids will be buffered there, and then the mineralization can precipitate. Remember that to make a deposit, you need to have a source of fluids, a transport, and a deposition. So the trap here was very important. If we would have limestones all over the place, maybe the deposit wouldn't have been deposited or it would be too deep. So very important, this seems not to be important, but they are very important. And then the diatreme here, some dikes, and the mineralization here. So I haven't differentiated here the two mineralization stages, but we're going to see those afterwards. And you will see that the mineralization, which is hosted in a diatreme and partly in the phyllites, has a little bit different suite of elements, of minor elements, than the mineralization that is here. Don't ask me why exactly, because I'm not sure why in one part we have more arsenic and the other part we have more antimony, but maybe it's related with the time of deposition. This was maybe earlier and this was a little bit later, or the buffering of the fluid. So something we never really discovered. So what are these Cordilleran or well-zoned base metal deposits, which you might not always have heard about? So they're close. They have a close association in time and space with calcaline igneous activity, so the diatreme and the dikes. Same producing areas as porphyry copper or high sulfidation epithermal gold and silver deposit, as I have shown in the context slide. The deposition at shallow levels and at temperature below 350 or 300 degrees, so it's not that high temperature. Although, having said that, the porphyry related, or the porphyry class, which obviously are different temperatures, are very high temperature. Deposition late in evolution of the porphyry system, so after the diatreme. The ores, the zinc, lead, copper, silver, and gold, are much richer in sulfides than porphyry copper ores. These deposits generally also have a lot of pyrite, which might produce some environmental problem on acid rock drainage. So something also to keep in mind when you study this kind of deposit, maybe not in a PhD, but when you're working in this kind of deposit, not look only at the ore, but also look at the waste rock. This is also part of the business of making an operation successful and environmental viable or sustainable. Ores occur mainly as open space fillings in silicate host rocks and as replacement in carbonate rocks. Very important. Well-developed zonation, and we're going to see that how this zonation is developed and how the minerals or the mineralogy changes. And frequently a pyrite quartz assemblage that can be extensive and form large bodies. So we will see this pyrite quartz with tungsten assemblage. At the time, we thought it was the first mineralization stage, but as you will see, this has changed in the paragenetic sequence, and it's after these pyrrhotite pipes that I mentioned. And these deposits have high silver and gold ratios. So this is more or less what these deposits are, right? So if we zoom in the deposit itself, you can see the open pit here, the diatreme border. This is the big pyrite body, which is within the first mineralization stage, but second event in the first mineralization stage. So the first mineralization stage are these pipe-like pyrrhotite bodies, which are zones 2, and we'll talk about it. And then we have the zinc-lead ores. These are iron-rich sphalerite, which are linked to the pyrrhotite pipes. In the second mineralization stages, we have this east-west copper, silver, gold, zinc, lead, energite pyrite veins, which are all east-west and mainly located in this diatreme dome complex. And in the eastern side, we have also zinc-lead mineralization, but low in sphalerite. So this is the main difference between the second stage and the first stage, and we're going to see why is that, right? Related to the sulfidation state of the fluids. So something important to see here. So big boundary between carbonate rocks, so reactive rocks, and to the west, non-carbonate rocks, not reactive. creating only veins, and here you have bodies. This replaced all the carbonate rocks, right? So this is a little bit the difference. When you put the fluid in a volcanic rock, generally you form, in this case, you form veins because you don't have the fluid reacting and being buffered by the carbonate rocks where you can really form big bodies, which is the case. So we're gonna look a little bit at the first stage, and this is a north-south section. Before that, which is the section going through here. So here, a view of the open pit. So you have this pyrite quartz body here, the pyrrhotite pipes that is in this part that you don't really see, the diatreme breccia in this part, and this is the alteration halo of the pyrite quartz body. And on the eastern side, you have the limestones and the mineralization, the zinc-lead iron pore mineralization. So this is a section that from an Audi, and I modified a little bit, showing these pyrrhotite pipes zoned with zinc-lead iron-rich spirite, replaced subsequently by this pyrite quartz body, and you can see that it's exactly at the boundary of the phyllites and the carbonate rocks. So this body mainly replaced carbonate rocks. Obviously, in the sequence of the carbonate rocks, there are more favorable and less favorable horizons, and you can see that in the eastern part of the deposit, where some of the stratifications or sequence have been much better mineralized than others. Okay, so the zonation looks a little bit like this. So in the center, you have pipe-like pyrrhotite bodies, which are vertical, with pyrrhotite quartz and wolframite. And then on the going outwards, you have pyrrhotite, spirite, chalcopyrite, and stannite. So very interesting association of elements. And then you go into pyrrhotite, spirite is appearing, arsenopyrite, chalcopyrite. And then if you go outwards, you have a mixture of pyrite and marcasite. And then spirite, galena, arsenopyrite, chalcopyrite. So as you can see here, if you want to exploit the spirite here or the spirite in this place, you're going to have arsenopyrite associated with it. So you need to depress this arsenopyrite because you don't want to have arsenic. And the other problem is that this deposit has this spirite with high iron, but also on the others, and the spirite with low iron. And those, being the same minerals, they will float in a different time. One will float quicker, and the other one will float slower. So there will be a problem of tons per hour if you don't plan well your mining. So these are things that is interesting in an academic way, but also in a real world context. So these are the pyrrhotite pipes, and some mineralogy here. The rocks look like this. So we have pyrrhotite, some iron-rich spirite, which in polished sections looks the same, but when you put transmitted light, you can see that this spirite is much more darker than an iron pore spirite. You have some quartz here, galena, and arsenopyrite that I will show, I think, in the next one. So all these minerals, if you think of the fluid, are assemblages of low sulfidation states. Right? We're going to go back to this afterward in a diagram showing temperature and sulfur fugacity to kind of see where these assemblages plot. Right? Because this is very important to understand the fluid and how this fluid evolved in time in Cerro de Pasco. So here is another picture of the mineralogy of this first mineralization stage with the iron zinc-lead ore with arsenopyrite, spirite again, quartz. There are some alteration minerals associated with chlorite, cerussite, siderite, calcite, and quartz. And again, this is also low sulfidation state assemblages. Right? This first mineralization stage, which is the pyrrhotite pipe zoned to zinc-lead mineralization, are of low sulfidation assemblages. And the pyrite quartz body consists of a massive pyrite and quartz mineralization. So you can see here pyrite and quartz, and it's in cases a little bit laminated. I haven't focused much on this, but Bertrand did. So if you're interested in this mineralization, you can see it, and that's what he saw. So he looked better at the timing of the within the first mineralization stage between this pyrite body and the zinc-lead deposit, zinc-lead bodies, iron rich, and he went back to core and cores that were drilled after that. I went there. So you can see here the contact between the pyrite quartz body and the pyrrhotite. And he has found that, in fact, what I thought that first was the pyrite quartz body and then the pyrrhotite is, in fact, the reverse, right? We had first, as I explained you, the pyrrhotite pipes bodies, and they are replaced in some places by pyrite. So very important discovery, should I say, because it changes a little bit the paragenetic sequence, right? And he has looked into details in this very interesting paper on how the pyrrhotite is being replaced by pyrite. And you can see that this texture here can be seen in this picture here. So he looked in details of the pyrrhotite, the arsenopyrite, and the galena. As you have seen in the picture of the mineralogical pictures, we have seen these minerals, and these are being replaced by pyrite with an intermediate step of macasite, this arsenopyrite with pyrite, and the galena partly with pyrite. So this has been a very important discovery. And as you can see here, he puts the differences of the fluid and what happened between the first step, let's say the pyrrhotite pipes and the pyrite body. So decrease in pH, increase in temperature or oxygen fugacity, and increase of salinity. Right. So very interesting discovery. So that was the paragenetic sequence before the work of Bertrand. So as you can see here, this box should go here in this place. So we have these pyrrhotite pipes with the different minerals, the pyrite quartz body, and then the sphaerite, arsenopyrite, galena, main zinc-lead deposit. So as you can see here, the iron in the sphaerite is high, 35 to 10 molar percent of FeS. And keep that in mind, because in the second stage, in the second mineralization stage, we're going to see that it's much lower. So let's go into the second mineralization stage, which will be these gray bodies here. And maybe something that I didn't mention, you can see the structures here. So these bodies are very much structurally controlled, but also to some point stratigraphically, lithologically controlled, right? So they are placed in structures here, and in these places. But once they find the structure and once they find the favorable horizon, they just expand. So this is very nicely shown in this picture here, where you can see that it's structurally controlled, but also stratigraphic. So section in this part of the deposit, where you have the diatreme, some east-west energite veins, and the main zinc-lead mineralization here, which is a pretty large part of the tonnage that has been exploited in the last 20 years or 30 years. So here is a superposition example. How do we know that? If you look here, or better here, there aren't many cross-cut relationships between the first mineralization stage and the second mineralization stage, because there is an open pit here, there is a void here. So it was very hard to find cross-cutting relationships. So we had to go underground And we can see that this iron poor sphalerite vein crosscuts this massive ore with iron-rich sphalerite. So this is the image that tells us, yeah, I know that this eastern zinclet mineralization is the second stage mineralization. So that was pretty key. So this second stage mineralization is also very nicely zoned, and this is a typical example of a fluid coming into limestones and being buffered and precipitating different minerals along the way. It's just a buffering pH increase of the fluid. So very nice. So there's a core zone, which is mainly copper. And we're going to see some images of that. An intermediate zone with a silver and bismuth. An outer zone with the sphalerite and galena, which is the main mineralization that they were exploiting, and I'm going to tell you why. And then on the easternmost parts, we have iron, manganese, and zinc carbonate, which they don't exploit. And the alteration minerals in this zone, between the core and the outer zone, we have a lot of aluminum phosphate sulfate minerals, which are called APS, such as alunite, installite, and all these kind of minerals, and also kaolinite and plus minus picite. So this is the zonation of these bodies. And to have a little bit a better view in 3D, it's exactly the same, right? The inner zone, intermediate zone, and outer zone. Seen as a different scale, and of course in the upper part of the zonation of the shallow part, it's generally oxidized. So the core zone, which is, I have put a little picture here so you can see where we are. In the eastern part, we have phomatinite, which is more or less the same as enargite, but with antimony, and pyrite, accompanied with alunite here. So with alteration assemblages such as alunite and the phomatinite, we know that these minerals are high sulfidation state assemblages. We don't need to do more chemistry or nothing. We know that, and we're going to see in a temperature sulfur fugacity diagram why is that. So the fluids are acid and oxidizing in the center, and when they go out, they are decreasing or decreasing acidity, increasing pH, and the minerals will be different. I have put in bold here some elements, as I mentioned at the start. So if we have antimony with copper, we can recover that. But antimony is generally a penalizing element. So the smelters do not really like antimony. So if we have a lot of antimony, sometimes they won't take your concentrate. So sometimes having copper is great, but depending on the association with some elements, it's not that great. So bear that in mind. And here you have some a BSE image, so backscattered electron image with the alunite and the phomatinite, and again, obviously same assemblage. Right? So if we go in this intermediate stage with the silver and bismuth, we have a lot of different minerals, and I haven't shown them all here, but there are plenty of different sulfur salts minerals. With the antimony pyrsite, matildite. And again, here we have copper, we have silver, but it's associated with bismuth, antimony, and arsenic, which is not really ideal, right? So here you have an image of matildite, chalcopyrite, and they are very, the intergrowth, I mean, they are intergrowth. So this is 50 microns. So in the plant, I doubt I don't know what's the grain size they use, but they will have this in the concentrate. So this is something that will penalize the concentrate. And here you have bismuthinite, stibnite associated with the tetrahedrite. So we have here phomatinite and tetrahedrite. So everything is antimony. A little bit of arsenic, but no energite and no tennantite in this part of the deposit. We have it in energite veins. We're going to come to quickly. So this is very complex mineralogy, and with some elements that are not very great. And those assemblages are of intermediate sulfidation state due to these tetrahedrite and some other minerals. The intermediate zone, which is just silver, you have prostite, you have jordanite, again arsenic, antimony, with kaolinite, hinsdallite, which is an APS mineral, and quartz. So as you can see here, the intergrowths are very fine-grained, so kind of difficult to separate during the processing stage. Right here, the kaolinite, prostite, and jordanite. And again, these minerals are intermediate sulfidation state assemblages. So now we're going to go more external or outwards, and you're going to see this is prostite in cross polars. You're going to see that the mineralization is changing a little bit with iron porphyrite, and look here, the iron content, it's 0.1 to 1.5 mole percent FeS. In the other one, we had like 30 to 10. So it's an order of magnitude less. Pyrite, we have marcasite and galena. And this hinsdallite is still present, so APS mineral, kaolinite. And we're kind of going again a little bit further down in the intermediate sulfidation state assemblages. Still the intermediate, we're not going to the low sulfidation stage as the first mineralization stage, but we are still in intermediate sulfidation. So galena, sphalerite, you can see here some internal reflections that shows that it's low iron and some quartz. Alteration minerals are still the same. Here are some clays, and the outermost zone is composed of hematite, magnetite. So sometimes the hematite, the magnetite replaces the hematite, as here, or sometimes it's the other way around, where hematite replaces magnetite. So you can see that the fluid goes and comes, and they're encroaching of different zones when the fluid progresses, but then regresses. Right? And we have some iron, manganese, zinc, carbonate minerals, but these are not being exploited. So just a little parenthesis, if this is not going into the processing plant, so not going into concentrate, this will go in the waste rock. And if this goes to the waste rock with the pyrite that is here, it's going to cause, with weathering, acid rock drainage. So these metals, zinc, iron, and there is some lead, will leach, and this will cause some environmental. So this is the second mineralization stage phylogenetic sequence. So from core to rim, pyrite is present in all zones. So pyrite is not always a good indicator of the sulfidation state. Chromatinite, tetrahedrite going out, sphalerite, galena, and magnetite hematite. And here you have the iron content of the sphalerite. So pretty low. Low in the more centric part, and going up in the more outwards zones. And why? Because the fluid is buffered and the sulfidation state is diminishing a little bit. So sphalerite can get more iron in its structure. So now looking at the east-west energite veins, which are here, and this is a section that was done by Einaudi at the time, and I just modified it. They all have numbers, and they're quite abundant. And these were exploited in the 50s because they had a lot of gold, which is not the case in the east-west bodies here. These do not have gold, but these energite veins have gold. And it's the gold that had the 2 million ounces gold that has been exploited before the 50s. It's exactly there. So this is an example of these energite veins, very narrow veins, not well developed because of the host rock, not very reactive, fracture controlled, with quartz alunite alteration assemblages in the center and going out it will be sericite pyrite. And the zonation is very nice with energite, pyrite, tennantite, chalcopyrite, sphalerite galena. There is sphalerite galena, but the very thin layer because the fluid wasn't in the carbonate rocks where it could expand and buffer and mineralize. It couldn't do that. So that's why the veins are so thin. And again here, looking a little bit at the composition of the energite, we have arsenic, right? And the tennantite has arsenic too. So this was at the time not an issue, but we know that arsenic has created some problems afterwards because energite will float very well and you want to recover the copper. So you recover the copper, but then the arsenic is still there. And energite is a high sulfidation mineral, right? And so this is a 3D block where you can see the energite veins, the pyrrhotite pipes, pyrite quartz body, and the eastern zinc-lead mineralization. Again, the host rock is very important in the development of these different mineralization stages. Very well developed in carbonate rocks because it's very reactive rock and not well developed. Why we have more gold in these energite veins is not clear. We don't know. Maybe the temperature was a little bit higher, but we don't know. So as I mentioned, we have the two mineralization stages, pipe-like pyrrhotite bodies zone outwards to zinc-lead ore with very high iron-rich sphalerite or high iron in sphalerite, followed by this pyrite quartz body, and these are low sulfidation state minerals, and you're going to see that in the next slide. How we can see that those minerals are low sulfidation state. And the second mineralization is this zoned copper and base metal veins and bodies in the western and eastern side, which contain high to intermediate sulfidation state minerals. And they belong to the Cordilleran base metal deposit class, as we mentioned before. And this type of feature are also present in a lot of other deposits described, such as Butte, and all these deposits in Peru. They are very similar, with more or less developed the first stage or the second stage, but it's all more or less the same. So how do we know that the fluids are low or high sulfidation? So this is a plot that has been put together by Einaudi in 2003, and we have temperature here, or the knowledge of Celsius here, and the fugacity of sulfur. So this is comparable to the concept of the oxygen fugacity. It's a bit different, but maybe that's the best way to describe it. And here we have put some mineral stability fields where we have coverlite, digenite, and we have energite farmatinite here. There is a line going here, energite tennantite, and when you go further down, you're going to go into hematite, pyrite, magnetite, and further down, you're going to hit the arsenopyrite pyrrhotite boundary. And what we have put also in here is the percentage of iron in the sphalerite. So this is 10%, 1%, 0.1%. So we have two ways to look at this diagram with the mineralogy that we have, the minerals that we have, and the iron percent in the sphalerite. So in the first stage A, which has been this has been updated by Bertrand, because I did the same, but my A was the pyrite quartz body, and now it's not. So I've used his diagram. So the A are the pyrrhotite pipes and iron-rich pyrite, which we know that we have pyrrhotite, arsenopyrite. So the starting fluid must be somewhere here at those temperatures, and the temperatures come from fluid inclusions, and the fluid evolved towards a little bit higher sulfidation stage, not high, but I mean towards the upper part of the plot, because we know we have arsenopyrite in assemblage going outwards. So the fluid must have gone this route here, and the pyrite quartz body, we're a little bit higher because we have marcasite. Marcasite is a little bit forms in a little bit more acidic fluids. Right? So this is the route that would take this fluid. And the third stage, the second mineralization stage, sorry, you see here, are fluids which are very acid at the start and will be buffered by these carbonate rocks to more intermediate stage assemblages. So just with the mineralogy, without doing much other work, we can already see where the fluids, what was the nature of the fluids. And this is very important when you go to the field and try to understand what's going on. If you know that you have energite, you're gonna be in the context of acidic fluids. If you just have pyrite, then you don't know, because pyrite is not very diagnostic. Right? But all these minerals are diagnostic: cobalite, digenite, energite, cometanite, tennantite, hematite, pyrite, magnetite, and then you go down to acid. So very important. And maybe in one sample you have all three of them, but they haven't formed at the same time, just because of this, right? So this is a bit the story of the fluids and the mineralization at Cerro de Pasco. Now, just a brief window into the lifetime of the magmatic hydrothermal system. So in 2009, we said, okay, the duration of the magmatic activity must be at least 350,000 years, because we had uranium lead dating on different dikes, zircon uranium lead dating. And in 2020, Bertrand did some more work, and this lifetime of the magmatic system is at least or more than 400,000 years, because he had some more datings, and these are punctuated by 3 porphyry type mineralization events that we didn't see, and we're going to touch briefly on that in the next couple of minutes. And these porphyry type mineralization are precursor of the last stage of epithermal polymetallic mineralization at Cerro de Pasco. So very interesting window of deeper mineralization in the diatreme class. So the class are very important in any breccia. It could be a diatreme, hydrothermal breccia, phreatomagmatic breccia, as is a diatreme. Very important to look at them. We saw some of them, but no time to look in details. And in 2009, we dated quite a lot of mineralization in hydrothermal minerals, alteration minerals, mainly allenite. So the first mineralization stage was between 15.1 and 14.5, and the second mineralization stage is 14.5 to 14.4. The first mineralization stage was dated on sericite, and the second on allenite, because remember, we wouldn't have allenite in the first mineralization stage because it's low sulfidation assemblages. So we can't have allenite. Allenite is with energite and all these minerals in acidic fluids. So this is again from Rottier, where he took the agents that we produce and added some agents of the mineralized porphyritic igneous clasts here with the uranium lead. Same methods, Tim's methods on zircon, and he dated some molybdenite that he found in a porphyry class, because we don't have molybdenite in the Cordilleran base metal deposits. Maybe to finish up, I think it's the last 3 slides. And this is just totally taken from Bertrand, which is a very nice paper. I really encourage you to read it, on this porphyry type mineralization. So he took some samples from the diatreme, which is exposed in the pit. And it's the eastern margin of the diatreme is exposed in the pit. So he found diatreme samples without porphyry clasts, which are the red, few porphyry clasts in these zones, and numerous porphyry clasts here. So these are the samples that afterwards he took and looked into very detailed work, very nice work with the fluid inclusions, laser ICP-MS, laser ablation ICP-MS, where you have the breccia here with the clast, very subtle clast. It's very hard to see it with a vein. We have also a trachyte porphyry with a quartz magnetite chalcopyrite veinlet. Here you have a vein, a typical quartz vein with a Hornfels clast here. So he looked into this one, and also here a Hornfels clast with the vein cross-cut. And here you have some little sheeted veins in the breccia. So this has been a very big portion of his study, and this is why I've shown that at the start. And this is the last slide, where he has this component of porphyry mineralization that he recognized in the clast of the diatreme, which at the time we didn't see it. And it was kind of the missing link, because if you remember the second or third slide where we have the porphyry system, where we have a porphyry, Rottier and base metal mineralization, high sulfidation, we were missing the porphyry. And at Coquihirca, it was exactly the same. Where is the porphyry? Is there a porphyry? Was it developed or not? Did it have time to develop before the whole system was blown out by the diatreme? Generally, diatremes are not good if they are associated to porphyry, or the porphyry has been blown up, or there's no time to form the porphyry, right? Because you need to have pressure to form the porphyry. So this is a release pressure release. So no time to form here. So he was able to identify those. And then obviously the different stages that we have just seen with the switch in order of the pyrrhotite pipes and the pyrite quartz body. But he did also a lot of work on fluid inclusions. I did some, mainly in the second stage, not so much in the first stage. So he looked not only at the first stage, the fluid inclusions in the quartz from this pyrite quartz body, these textures from pyrite replacing pyrrhotite, macrosite replacing pyrrhotite, and the galena and everything, and also the fluid inclusions deeper down here in this porphyry class. So this is a little bit what Cerro de Pasco has revealed in the last 20 years. So very interesting. I'm going to leave this here. And if there are some questions, maybe I can answer, maybe I can't. So yeah, open for any questions.
Thank you very much. Very interesting story. Any questions? This